Well, good morning. Welcome back to At First Glance with Jared Wasson.
And Pastor Michael Miller.
So today we're going to go through Luke 8, 26 through 39. But before we do that, we kind of want to talk about a method of meditation that we're using to go through our scriptures.
Sure. So in our this past Sunday's gospel, we heard from John's gospel where Jesus is speaking about how the Spirit of truth will come and guide you into all the truth. And so, as we read the scriptures, seeking to hear the Spirit speaking to us and to learn what that truth is in our own situation, our own lives, in our own world, what's a good practice for doing that? And I think a tried and true practice of the church over many years has been to help us to slow down and really listen more deeply. So we'll take these passages, the gospel readings for each week, and Jared will read them, and then we'll think about what is it that resonates for us? What is it that stands out? That's the first step, just to pay attention well enough to see what's connecting with me. And then from there to think a little bit deeper. How is this thing that we've just heard connect with our lives and connect with the world in which we live? That will invite some questions that we may need to ponder over time. Chew on that for a while. Pray about that and continue to listen until we hear the Spirit speaking to us in some way about what it is that we're invited to do. Maybe there's a change that needs to happen. Maybe we need to engage in something, or maybe we need to reflect on a particular attitude or look at a value that we've been clinging to that maybe is in tension with the story that Jesus is telling us. So we start by just noticing as we read, and then we go deeper in terms of the connection to our lives and our world, our community, and then how is that Spirit speaking truth to us today? What is it inviting so that we take action in line with God's purpose in the world? So that's the simple outline. This is at first glance, so we're going to kind of open that up in our first reading of it, but we'll invite you then to continue to reflect on that and to deepen your listening and be able to hear the Spirit speaking.
Absolutely. It'll be great.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
So again, this is Luke 8, verses 26 through 39, if you want to follow along with us. All right, let's get started.
All right.
When they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee, as he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion, for the demons are many who had entered him." They begged him not to order them back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they had come to Jesus, they found the man for whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by the demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might go with them. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city just how much Jesus had done for him. What do you think, Pastor?
I think the first thing that strikes me is the intensity.
It's an intense
This
story.
really intense experience of this man who's shackled and breaks the shackles and goes off into the tombs. And it's just this out of control situation.
Right.
And yet Jesus doesn't flinch. He goes right directly into the midst of that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that stood out to me is how they described the man who had the demons. Is that he had worn no clothes and he did not live in a house but in tombs. I mean, I think that's kind of symbolic for spiritually dead, not living with the world but in the tombs, being naked and having no clothes. That kind of reminds me of almost an inverse of Adam in the garden. Kind of what stood out to me right away.
So what questions come to mind then? You think about this passage and you think about, what questions and what connections do you sense as you think about that story and your own experience?
Yeah, so the church calls us to go out to meet those who are in need, and we see Jesus doing that here. Sometimes I think it's really difficult to go and do that, and I don't see scenarios like this that are very intense, so it's easier for me to go and do things around where I live, and then it probably was for Jesus in this moment. He just goes and does it. I guess I would ask you, what is the significance of the swine? Why would the demons want to be released into the swine?
I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know.
I think there's some connection between the unclean spirit and the unclean animal. And I don't really know what that is. I mean, we know this is in the country of the Gerasenes, which is obviously Galilee. It's a mostly Gentile area. Probably Greek, but definitely Gentile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why Jews who saw swine as unclean animals would have herds of swine.
They wouldn't be.
Right, exactly. So, but this man is amongst them, and the uncleanness is swept away into the waters.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some symbolism there, maybe for baptism. I don't know.
That's an interesting connection. Yeah, and certainly there's all that uncleanness of the dead, of the unclean spirits, of the unclean animals. And again, Jesus doesn't flinch. He goes into the midst of that, and part of the concern of the Jewish ritual law was that if you touch something that's unclean, or if you engage with something that's unclean, you become unclean. And then you have to go through this process of ritual purification in order to be part of the worshiping community again. And in this and other situations, Jesus enters into the midst of that, and he doesn't become unclean. Instead, he
Makes others clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of the story, the man is sitting there calm and in his right mind, clothed.
At the feet of Jesus.
He's made whole.
Yeah, which is where we're all meant to be, in that attitude of with Christ at his feet, unashamed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the questions that we all might ask is, where in my life am I struggling? In some sense, the way this man was. How do I need to be made whole? And to become aligned with God's purpose. To become the student of Jesus at his feet, like that man is particularly.
Yeah. That's one of the things we're trying to do here with this podcast too, is to sit at the feet of Jesus and talk to him. I mean, literally, you may not see it, but we're sitting at the feet of Jesus in the stained glass window here, and that's kind of symbolic of what we're trying to do. And it's definitely what this man was doing. So, how in our own lives can we go and imitate Christ in this way? Are there specific things we can do to help those around us?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. There's two ways of reading this story. Put ourselves in the place of the man who was healed, but also knowing that Jesus is inviting or calling his disciples to be his apprentices so that they can be prepared to go out and do similarly. And we'll hear that in a few weeks, where he sends a group of disciples out. So what does that look like? And I think in our own world right now, there are people who are struggling deeply, and there are all kinds of issues that impinge on their lives that make it very difficult. And it's scary to wade into that for me, because I recognize that I don't know all the answers. I haven't experienced that before. I don't even know how to help. It's beyond me.
Right.
But there's a power at work in this story. It's God's power, and Jesus trusts that power implicitly to work through him. And he invites his disciples to do the same thing. So learning to become more aware of God's presence and to trust that power is at work in us, and that we can take the risk of engaging sometimes in things that I don't know the answer to this.
Right.
But I'm called to be present.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's all that's called for, is for us to just be there. Mm-hmm. I think that's more helpful than us not being there.
Right.
There's a lot of hurt in the world right now. If you turn on the news, you'll see it nonstop, all over the world, but even here in our own country, in our own city, probably on this block, there's people that need help. So, yeah, what you do is just go out and be there. Right?
Yeah, so I think this process of taking a look at the reading, taking a listen to it, and identifying what connects with me, what does that awaken in me, and then to continue to think about that more deeply. What are the connections? You can put yourself in the position of certain characters within the story and see it from those perspectives. What do you learn from sitting in that space and hearing what's going on, and then shift maybe to another character.
Try to see the points of view from everyone.
Right. So taking the time to really listen deeply that way opens up the story so that we can reflect then about how does this connect with the world in which we live. So then, as we chew on that and listen with the prayer that the Spirit will speak to us, it will, I think we can trust that it will open up. Sometimes in profound ways, sometimes not so profoundly, but if we continue to listen, the Spirit of truth will lead us into all truth. That's the promise on this last week. Absolutely. And so I think this is a good start.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Michael. Thank you for watching or listening. This has been At First Glance. We'll see you next week.